I stared at the engagement ring on my finger, the 3-carat diamond catching the Seattle rain through my apartment window. In exactly 12 hours, Ryan Martinez would walk down the aisle to marry my sister Sophia instead of me.
Oh.
But this time, I wasn't going to stop it. This time I had a different plan entirely. The clock on my nightstand read 6:47 a.m., October 15th, 2023. I knew this date by heart because I'd lived it before. In my previous life, I'd fought tooth and nail to keep Ryan, only to watch him choose Sophia anyway. I'd spent 3 miserable years married to him, enduring his affairs, his mother's constant criticism, and his complete indifference to my existence. The final blow came when I discovered he'd been embezzling from his father's company to fund his gambling addiction. When I threatened to expose him, he pushed me down the stairs of our Bellevue mansion. I died alone in a hospital bed while Sophia posted Instagram photos from Paris with my trust fund money, but somehow I'd woken up here 6 months before my death. On the morning I was supposed to fight for a man who never deserved me, the universe had given me the ultimate do-over, and I was going to use it wisely. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. Emma, we need to talk. Meet me at Victrola on Capitol Hill in an hour. It's about Ryan. I could picture it perfectly. Probably wearing that cream-colored cashmere sweater that made her look innocent while she delivered her poison. In my past life, this was the conversation where she tearfully confessed that she and Ryan had fallen in love, begging me to step aside for their happiness. I'd been devastated, heartbroken, completely blindsided. This time, I was prepared. Dressed carefully in my navy blue blazer and jeans, the outfit I knew made me look professional and put together. My reflection in the mirror showed a 20-year-old woman with tired eyes and stress lines that shouldn't exist on someone. My age, in my previous life, those lines had only gotten deeper. This time, they were going to disappear entirely. The coffee shop was already bustling with the morning crowd when I arrived. Sophia sat in our usual corner booth, her blonde hair falling in perfect waves over her shoulders. She'd always been the prettier sister, the one who attracted attention. Wherever she went, our stepmother Linda had made sure of that, enrolling Sophia in beauty pageants and modeling classes while I was encouraged to focus on my studies. Emma. Sophia jumped up to hug me, her perfume overwhelming, as always. You look tired, sweetie. Have you been sleeping okay? I ordered my usual oat milk latte and settled across from her. I've been better. You said this was about Ryan? Sophia's eyes immediately filled with tears, right on schedule. Oh, Emma, I don't know how to say this. Never meant for it to happen, I swear. Ryan and we've been talking more lately, and I think he might have feelings for me. In my past life, I'd gasped, denied it, demanded to know what she meant. This time I simply nodded. I know. Her perfectly practiced expression of guilt faltered for just a moment. You know. I've known for weeks, Sophia. I'm not blind. I stirred my coffee slowly, watching her face. The question is, what do you want me to do about it? I thought maybe you could talk to him, find out if he's really happy with your engagement. She leaned forward, her hand reaching for mine. I would never want to come between you two. But if he's not truly committed, I pulled my hand away gently. You want me to give him permission to choose you? Emma, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. But her eyes were already lighting up with hope. Actually, that's exactly what you're saying. I took a sip of my latte, letting the silence stretch between us. And you know what? You're right. If Ryan would rather be with you, then that's where he should be. Sophia's mouth fell open. This wasn't the script she'd prepared for. But Emma, you love him. You've been planning your wedding for months. Have I, though? I pulled out my phone and showed her my notes app, where I'd started a list titled Wedding Planning. It contained exactly 3 items: book, venue, order flowers, and find dress. All written in the past week. Look at this list, Sophia. Does this look like a woman excited to marry the love of her life? She stared at the screen, confusion clear on her face. I don't understand. I think maybe I've been so caught up in the idea of marrying Ryan that I never stopped to ask myself if I actually wanted to. leaned back in my chair, projecting. A calm I definitely didn't feel. His father always said Ryan needed a stabilizing influence, someone responsible and mature. I think I convinced myself I was in love when really I was just trying to be what everyone expected me to be. This was partially true. David Martinez had indeed said those exact words to me multiple times, usually after Ryan had gotten himself into some kind of trouble. But I'd been genuinely in love with Ryan then, blind to his faults and desperate for his approval. So what are you saying? Sophia whispered. I'm saying that if you and Ryan think you'd be happy together, I won't stand in your way. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. But I want you to be sure, Sophia. What? Really sure. Because once you make this choice, there's no going back. Sophia's eyes were bright with unshed tears, but I could see the excitement underneath. Emma, are you serious? You'd really step aside? I want both of you to be happy. The words tasted bitter in my mouth, but I forced a smile. Just promise me one thing. Promise me you'll take care of each other. She nodded eagerly, already reaching for her phone. I need to call him. Emma, you're the most generous person I know. I promise you won't regret this. But I wasn't being generous. I was being strategic. After Sophia left, practically floating out of the coffee shop, I walked to Cary Park and looked out over the Seattle skyline. The Space Needle stood tall against the gray sky, and Elliott Bay stretched out toward the Olympic Mountains. It was the kind of view that usually made me feel peaceful, but today my heart was racing with anticipation and terror in equal measure. My phone rang just as I'd expected it would. David Martinez's name appeared on the screen. Emma, dear. You have a moment to talk? His voice was exactly as I remembered it, warm, authoritative, with just a hint of a Texas accent that he'd never quite lost, despite 30 years in Seattle. David had built Martinez Industries from nothing, starting with a single construction project and growing it into one of the Pacific Northwest's largest development companies. He was brilliant, ruthless in business, and completely devoted to his family. Of course, Mr. Martinez, is everything all right? I'm afraid not. I just received a rather interesting phone call from my son. It seems there's been some confusion. About his wedding plans? I closed my eyes, remembering this conversation from my previous life. Back then, I'd been sobbing in my apartment when David called, heartbroken and humiliated. This time, I was standing in a park, feeling more clear-headed than I had in months. There's no confusion, Mr. Martinez. Ryan and I have decided we're not right for each other. A long pause. Emma, I think we need to talk in person. Are you free for lunch today? I am. Meet me at the Pink Door in an hour, and Emma, I'm very sorry this is happening. The Pink Door was one of David's favorite restaurants, tucked away in Pike Place Market with no sign marking its entrance. I'd eaten there dozens of times over the years, usually for family celebrations or business dinners. The owner, Maria, knew David well enough to always have his favorite table ready. I arrived first and sat at the corner table overlooking Elliott Bay. The lunch crowd was just starting to filter in, and the atmosphere was warm and intimate despite the gray day outside. When David walked in, every head in the restaurant turned. Even at 52, he commanded attention wherever he went. Tall and broad-shouldered, with silver threading through his dark hair and intelligent gray eyes that missed nothing. He kissed my cheek before sitting across from me, his expression serious. You look beautiful, as always. Thank you. I studied his face, remembering how kind he'd been to me during my marriage to Ryan. He'd been the only member of the Martinez family who'd ever made me feel welcome, who'd listened when I spoke and remembered details about my work and interests. I ordered your usual, he said, gesturing to the server. The salmon with that risotto you like. Of course he remembered. David remembered everything about everyone he cared about. Now he continued once we were alone. Tell me what really happened with Ryan. I'd prepared for this question. We realize we want different things from life. Ryan wants someone who'll be content to host dinner parties and look good at charity. Galas? I want more than that. David's eyebrows rose slightly. And what do you want, Emma? I want to matter. I want to build something meaningful, not just be someone's accessory. I met his eyes directly. I want what you have: purpose, impact, the ability to create something lasting. You have that at your marketing agency? Do I? I write copy. For startup companies that fold within a year, I create social media campaigns for products no one needs. I shook my head. That's not impact, Mr. Martinez. That's just noise. Our food arrived, and we ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. I could feel David studying me the way he did when he was evaluating a business proposal or trying to solve a complex problem. You know, he said finally, Martinez Industries has been looking for someone to head our new community development initiative. It's a position that would involve working directly with local governments and nonprofit organizations to create sustainable housing projects. My heart skipped. In my previous life, this job had gone to an external candidate who'd lasted less than 6 months before being fired for incompetence. That sounds fascinating. It would be a significant step up from your current position. The salary would be commensurate with the responsibility naturally. He paused. I'd want you to start as soon as possible, Mr. Martinez. I can't accept that job. Not after what's happened with Ryan. People would think I'm smart enough to recognize talent when I see it. His voice was firm. Emma, I've watched you for 3 years. You're intelligent, hardworking, and you have excellent instincts about people. The fact that my son was too foolish to appreciate what he had doesn't change any of that. I stared at him, remembering the way he'd looked at me during family dinners, the way he'd always sought out my opinion on business matters. In my previous life, I'd attributed it to politeness. Now I wondered if there had been something more. I need to think about it, I said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Emma, I want you to know that regardless of what happens between you and Ryan, you'll always be family to me. That doesn't change. His hand was warm and calloused from his early years in construction. I'd forgotten how safe I felt when David was around, how he had a way of making even the most complicated problems seem manageable. Thank you, I whispered. That means more to me than you know. When we parted ways outside the restaurant, David pulled me into a hug that lasted just a moment longer than appropriate. I breathed in his cologne, something expensive and understated that reminded me of cedar and rain. Think about the job offer, he said softly. I believe you could do extraordinary things, Emma. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. As I walked back to my car, my phone exploded with text messages. Sophia, Ryan, my stepmother Linda, and half a dozen friends all wanted to know what was happening. I ignored them all and drove to the University of Washington campus, where I used to go when I needed to think. The quad was busy with students rushing between classes, their backpacks heavy with books and their faces bright with possibility. I found an empty bench under a maple tree that was just beginning to turn red and gold, and I allowed myself to really process what was happening. In my previous life, this day had been the beginning of the worst 3 years of my life. I'd fought to keep Ryan, married him in a ceremony that felt more like a business transaction, and slowly lost myself in trying to be the perfect wife to a man who couldn't have cared less. I'd given up my job, my friends, my dreams, all for the sake of a marriage that was doomed from the start. But this time, I'd let him go willingly. I'd taken control of the narrative instead of being a victim of it, and somehow that had opened a door I'd never even known existed. The position David had offered was everything I'd ever wanted professionally. It was meaningful work that would allow me to make a real difference in people's lives. It was also a chance to work closely with a man I'd always admired, a man who saw potential in me that I was only beginning to recognize myself. I pulled out my phone and typed a text to David. I'd like to accept your offer. When can I start? His response came within minutes. Monday morning. Welcome to the team, Emma. I have a feeling this is going to be the beginning of something extraordinary. As I sat on that bench watching students hurry past, I felt something I hadn't experienced in my previous life. Hope. Real, genuine hope for a future that was entirely mine to create. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from Ryan. "Emma, we need to talk. Sophia told me what you said. Want to make sure you're okay with this." I almost laughed. In my previous life, Ryan had never asked if I was okay with anything. He'd made decisions and expected me to fall in line. The fact that he was asking now, when it was already too late, just proved how little he'd ever really known me. I typed back, "I'm more than okay with it, Ryan. I'm happy for both of you. Take care of each other." It was the truth. I was happy. Happier than I'd been in longer than I could remember. Tomorrow, I would start a new job working for a man who believed in my abilities. Ryan and Sophia would get their fairy tale romance, at least until reality set in, and I would finally have the chance to become the person I was meant to be. The rain started to fall again, typical for Seattle in October, but I didn't mind. I tilted my face up to the sky and let the cool drops wash over me, feeling like I was being baptized into a new life. When I finally stood to leave, I felt lighter than I had in years. The future stretched out ahead of me, full of possibilities I'd never dared to imagine. This time I wasn't going to waste a single moment of it. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made Seattle feel alive with possibility. I stood outside the Martinez Industries building, a gleaming 40-story tower of glass and steel that dominated the downtown skyline. In my previous life, I'd visited this building countless times as Ryan's fiancé, always feeling like an outsider looking in. Today, I was walking through those doors as an employee, and the difference was electric. The lobby was a study in understated luxury, all polished marble and warm wood accents. A massive abstract sculpture dominated the center space, its flowing lines suggesting both movement and stability. I'd always loved that piece, though I'd never had the courage to say so when Ryan had dismissed it as pretentious nonsense. Ms. Chen, a young woman with a professional smile, approached me. "I'm Sarah, Mr. Martinez's executive assistant. He's waiting for you upstairs." The elevator ride to the 40th floor felt both endless and instantaneous. My stomach fluttered with nerves, but underneath that was a steady current of excitement. This was really happening. I was about to start the kind of job I'd only dreamed, about working for a man whose business acumen I'd always admired from afar. David's office was exactly as I remembered it, spacious but not ostentatious. With floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Puget Sound, the furniture was comfortable rather than imposing, and the walls were lined with books and photographs from his various construction projects over the years. It felt like the office of someone who worked, rather than simply presided. "Emma." David stood from behind his desk, and I was struck again by his presence. He wore a charcoal gray suit that was perfectly tailored, but not flashy, and his smile was genuinely warm. "I'm so glad you decided to join us." "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Martinez. I promise you won't regret it." "Please, call me David. We're colleagues now." He gestured to the seating area by the windows. "Coffee, Sarah makes the best espresso in the building." As we settled into the comfortable chairs, I couldn't help but notice how different this felt from every other interaction I'd had in this office. Previously, I'd always been Ryan's plus one, sitting quietly while the men discussed business.
Oh.
David was looking at me as an equal, someone whose opinions and insights mattered. "I want to start by explaining exactly what this position entails," David said, handing me a thick folder. "The Community Development Initiative is something I've been planning for 2 years. We've identified 12 neighborhoods in Seattle and the surrounding areas, where we can partner with local organizations to create affordable housing that doesn't compromise on quality or sustainability." I opened the folder and felt my breath catch. The scope was incredible. Mixed-income housing developments, community centers, green spaces, partnerships with local schools and healthcare providers. This wasn't just about building houses. It was about creating thriving communities. "This is amazing," I said, studying the architectural renderings and demographic studies. The integration of retail spaces with residential units, the focus on public transportation access. You've thought of everything. Actually, those were suggestions from our community outreach team. The people who live in these neighborhoods, know better than anyone what they need. David's eyes lit up as he spoke. That's why I need someone who understands that this isn't about imposing our vision on these communities. It's about listening, learning, and building something together. And you think I can do that? Emma, I've watched you at family dinners for 3 years. You ask questions. You listen to the answers. You remember details about people's lives that others forget. He leaned forward slightly. Last Christmas, you spent an hour talking to Maria, our housekeeper, about her daughter's college applications. A week later, you sent her a care package with study guides and a handwritten note of encouragement. That's the kind of person I need. For this job, I felt heat rise in my cheeks. I'd completely forgotten about that interaction, but David had not only noticed, but remembered it months later. It was typical of his attention to detail, but it also suggested he'd been paying closer attention to me than I'd realized. The first project is in Georgetown, he continued, pulling out a map. It's a former industrial area that's been neglected for decades. The city is finally ready to invest in revitalization, but they want to do it right. No gentrification that pushes out longtime residents. No corporate developments that ignore the community's character. I studied the map, recognizing the neighborhood from my college days when I'd volunteered at a food bank there. Georgetown has such a strong sense of community identity. The challenge will be honoring that while still bringing in the resources and opportunities they need. Exactly, which is why I want you to spend the next week just walking around, talking to people, getting a feel for what they actually want versus what we think they need. David handed me a business card. This is Alina Rodriguez. She runs the community center and has lived in Georgetown her whole life. She's agreed to be your guide. The next few hours flew by as David introduced me to the rest of the development team, showed me my new office, and walked me through the company's project management systems. My office was on the 38th floor, with a view of the waterfront. And it was easily 3 times the size of my workspace at the marketing agency. More importantly, it came with the resources and support to actually make a difference in people's lives. By the time lunch arrived, my head was spinning with information and possibilities. David knocked on my door just as I was reviewing the Georgetown demographic data. How are you feeling? Not too overwhelmed, I hope. Overwhelmed in the best possible way, I admitted. This is exactly the kind of work I've always wanted to do. I just never thought I'd get the chance. Well, you have it now. And I have complete confidence in your ability to excel. He paused at my door. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner tonight. Nothing formal, just a chance to discuss the projects in more detail without the interruptions of the office. Something in his tone made me look up from my papers. There was a careful casualness to the invitation that suggested it meant more than just a business dinner. In my previous life, David had never invited me anywhere without Ryan being included. I'd like that, I said, probably too quickly. Excellent. Of course, I knew Canlis. It was only the most exclusive restaurant in Seattle, the kind of place where reservations were booked months in advance, and the wine list cost more than most people's monthly rent. I'd eaten there once before, for Ryan's birthday, and had felt completely out of place the entire evening. I'll pick you up at 7, David continued, or something nice, but not too formal. Canellis has relaxed their dress code recently. After he left, I sat staring at my computer screen without really seeing it. David Martinez had just asked me to dinner at one of the most romantic restaurants in the city. It could be purely professional, of course. Successful businessman. Took clients and colleagues to nice restaurants all the time. But something about the way he'd asked, the slight hesitation in his voice suggested otherwise. I thought about my previous life, about the way David had always been kind to me during family gatherings, the way he'd remembered small details about my interests and opinions, the way he'd looked at me sometimes when he thought no one was watching. Had I missed something obvious because I'd been so focused on Ryan? At 5:30, I left the office and drove to my apartment in Ballard, my mind racing with questions and possibilities. My closet was a testament to 3 years of trying to be the kind of woman Ryan wanted me to be. Conservative dresses. Neutral colors, nothing too attention-grabbing or memorable. But buried in the back, I found a deep emerald green dress I'd bought on impulse, but never worn. It was elegant but not stuffy, sophisticated but not severe. It's perfect for a dinner that might or might not be a date. I took longer getting ready than I had in months, carefully applying makeup and styling my hair in soft waves instead of the severe bun I'd favored during my engagement to Ryan. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The woman staring back at me looked confident, successful, and genuinely happy. It was a stark contrast to the anxious, people-pleasing version of myself I'd become in my previous life. David arrived at exactly 7 o'clock, driving a sleek black Tesla rather than the ostentatious sports car I might have expected from a billionaire. He got out to open my door, and I caught him staring for just a moment before he smiled. "You look beautiful, Emma. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." He was wearing a navy suit with a white shirt and no tie, the kind of effortlessly elegant look that spoke of excellent tailoring and complete confidence. As we drove through the city, he asked about my first day, seeming genuinely interested. In my thoughts and impressions, Canlis was exactly as I remembered it. Stunning views of Lake Union, impeccable service, and an atmosphere of quiet luxury. But tonight felt completely different from my previous visit. David was an attentive companion, asking thoughtful questions and listening carefully to my answers. He didn't check his phone once during dinner, didn't interrupt me to take calls, didn't make me feel like I was competing for his attention. "Tell me about your marketing work," he said over the appetizer course. "What drew you to that field originally?" "Honestly, I fell into it by accident. I needed a job after college, and a friend of a friend knew someone at the agency. I realized how pathetic that sounded. But I stayed because I liked the creative problem-solving aspect, figuring out how to connect with people, how to tell a story that resonates. Those are exactly the skills you'll need for community development. The only difference is that instead of selling products, you'll be selling hope." The main course arrived, and our conversation shifted to more personal topics. David told me about his early days in construction, working 16-hour days to build the foundation of what would become Martinez Industries. I shared stories about growing up with Sophia and Linda, the constant pressure to be the responsible one while my sister got to be the charming one. "I've always wondered about that dynamic," David said carefully. "You and Sophia are so different. She's everything I'm not. Beautiful, spontaneous, magnetic. People are drawn to her without her even trying." "Emma," David's voice was serious, "you're one of the most beautiful women I've ever met. But more than that, you're intelligent, thoughtful, and genuine. Those are much rarer qualities than simple physical beauty." I felt heat rise in my cheeks again. "Thank you, but you don't have to say that. I never say things I don't mean. It's bad for business." His smile took the edge off the words. "Besides, I've had plenty of opportunities to observe both you and Sophia over the years. Trust me when I say, I know which sister has more substance." "The wine was making me bolder than usual. Is that why you offered me this job? Because you prefer me to Sophia?" David was quiet for a long moment, studying his wine glass. "I offered you the job because you're the most qualified person I know for the position. But yes, I'll admit that my feelings about you influenced my decision to create the position in the first place." "Your feelings about me?" "Emma, I've been watching you for 3 years. Watching you try to make yourself smaller to accommodate Ryan's ego. Watching you dim your own light so he could feel brighter." David's gray eyes met mine across the table. It was one of the most frustrating things I've ever witnessed. My breath caught. "David, I know this is complicated. I know the timing is terrible, but I can't pretend anymore that my interest in you is purely professional." He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. "I've been attracted to you since the day Ryan first brought you home. I've spent 3 years telling myself it was inappropriate, that you were off limits, that I was imagining the connection I felt between us." "You weren't imagining it," I whispered. "Wasn't I? Because from where I sat, you seemed completely devoted to my son. I was devoted to the idea of your son, to who I thought he could become or who I thought I could help him become." I turned my hand over so our palms were touching. But I never felt with him what I'm feeling right now. The silence stretched between us, charged with possibility, and danger in equal measure. David's thumb traced small circles on my palm, and I felt goosebumps rise along my arms. "Emma, I need you to understand what you'd be getting into," he said finally. "I'm 24 years older than you. I'm recently widowed. I'm your employer, and I'm the father of your ex-fiancés. People will talk. About both of us. Let them talk." The words came out stronger than I'd expected. I'm tired of living my life based on what other people think. I'm tired of playing it safe and ending up miserable. And what about Ryan? He's still my son? I thought about my previous life. It's about the years of emotional abuse and financial manipulation. About dying alone while Ryan partied with his friends. Ryan made his choice. He chose Sophia, and I genuinely hope they're happy together. But I refuse to spend the rest of my life living in the shadow of that choice. David lifted our joined hands and pressed a soft kiss to my knuckles. "In that case, Miss Chen, would you like to see where this goes?" "I thought you'd never ask, Mr. Martinez." The drive back to my apartment was charged with tension and anticipation. David walked me to my door, and for a moment we stood there, like teenagers, unsure of what came next. "I should probably mention," I said, fumbling with my keys, "that I've never dated my boss before. I'm not sure what the protocol is. Neither have I, actually. I've made it a strict policy never to get involved with employees." David stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. "You seem to be an exception to all my rules." "Good," I breathed, leaning into his touch. "I'm tired of following rules anyway." When he kissed me, it was nothing like the hesitant, perfunctory kisses I'd shared with Ryan. David kissed me like I was something precious but not fragile, like he'd been thinking about it for a very long time. His hands tangled in my hair, and I could taste the wine on his lips, and smell his cologne, and feel the solid warmth of his chest against mine. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "I should go," he said, but he made no move. "To leave, you should," I agreed, but I was already reaching for him again. "Emma." His voice was rough. "If I come upstairs with you tonight, there's no going back. Are you sure this is what you want?" I thought about my previous life, about all the chances I'd never taken and all the risks I'd been too scared to embrace. I thought about the woman I'd been trying to become, the one who made her own choices and lived with the consequences. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. David's apartment was a penthouse in Belltown, with floored two-ceiling windows and a view that encompassed the entire city. But I barely noticed the luxury or the careful decoration. All I could focus on was the way David looked at me, like I was the most fascinating woman in the world. We made coffee and sat on his couch talking until the sun started to rise over the Cascade Mountains. He told me about his late wife, about the loneliness of the past 3 years, about his fears, that he was too old and set in his ways to start over. I told him about my dreams for the future, about the communities I wanted to help build, about the woman I was finally ready to become. As dawn broke over Seattle, David pulled me closer on the couch, and I nestled against his chest, feeling more at home than I had in years. "Emma," he murmured into my hair, "I want you to know that whatever happens between us, your job is secure. This position exists because you're the right person for it, not because of anything personal." "I know that," I said, tilting my head to look at him. "And I want you to know that I'm here because I want to be, not because you're my boss or because you're wealthy or because you can offer me opportunities. I'm here because you see me for who I really am." "Hey, who are you really, Emma Chen?" I thought about the question, about the woman I'd been and the woman I was becoming. "I'm someone who's finally ready to stop apologizing for taking up space in the world." David's smile was soft and proud. "I can't wait to see what you do." With all that space, as I watched the city wake up below us, I felt a sense of peace I'd never experienced before. In my previous life, I'd spent so much energy trying to be what others wanted me to be that I'd lost track of my own desires and dreams. Now, for the first time, I was exactly where I wanted to be, with exactly the person I wanted to be with. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Emma, I hope you're okay. Ryan and I set a date for next month. We'd love for you to be there, if you're comfortable with it." I showed the message to David, who raised an eyebrow. "How do you feel about that?" "Honestly, I feel sorry for them. They think they're getting their fairy tale, but they have no idea what they're actually signing up for. And what about us? What are we signing up for? I turned to face him fully, taking in his serious expression and the way the morning light caught the silver in his hair. I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. David kissed me again, soft and sweet and full of promise. Outside, Seattle was coming alive with the start of a new week. Inside, I was coming alive with the start of a new life. One where I made my own choices, took my own risks, and finally put myself first. Ready to change the world, Miss Chen? Ready when you are, Mr. Martinez. 3 months into our relationship, David and I had settled into a rhythm that felt both natural and thrilling. We kept our romance private at the office, maintaining perfect professionalism during business hours. But our evenings belonged to each other, filled with intimate dinners, long conversations, the kind of passionate connection I'd never experienced before. The Georgetown project was exceeding all expectations. Alina Rodriguez had become not just my guide, but my friend, introducing me to community leaders, shop owners, and longtime residents who shared their dreams for the neighborhood's future. We'd held dozens of town halls, conducted surveys, and organized focus groups. The resulting development plan was something truly special: affordable housing that preserved the area's industrial character, community gardens that honored the neighborhood's immigrant heritage, and mixed-use buildings that would bring in jobs without displacing existing businesses. David was in his element during our project meetings, his eyes lighting up as I presented each phase of the community plan. He asked insightful questions, offered creative solutions, and never once made me feel like my ideas were being dismissed or overlooked. Working with him was like dancing with a perfect partner who anticipated your every move. The city council meets next week to approve the final proposal, I told him over dinner at his penthouse. Lena thinks we have enough community support to push it through. You've done incredible work, Emma. This project is going to transform not just Georgetown, but how the entire city approaches urban development. David reached across the table to take my hand. I'm so proud of you. The warmth in his voice made my chest tight with emotion. In my previous life, Ryan had never expressed pride in my accomplishments. He'd barely acknowledged them at all. There's something else, I said, suddenly nervous. Channel 7 wants to do a feature story about the project. I want to interview both of us about the public-private partnership model. David's expression grew cautious. That would mean going public with our professional relationship, and possibly our personal one, depending on how observant the reporter is. I squeezed his hand. David, I know we agreed to keep things quiet, but I'm tired of hiding how I feel about you. I'm tired of pretending you're just my boss when you're so much more than that. Emma, once this gets out, there's no controlling the narrative. People will say you've slept your way to the top. They'll claim the job was just a way for me to get close to you. Let them. I know the truth, and so do you. My work speaks for itself. David brought my hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to my palm. You're braver than I am. I've been dreading the day this comes out because I know how cruel people can be. I've lived through cruel people before, survived it then, and I'll survive it now. The only difference is that this time, I'll have you by my side. The interview was scheduled for the following Friday at the Georgetown Community Center. As I got ready that morning, I chose my outfit carefully. A professional but approachable navy blazer with a white blouse and minimal jewelry. I wanted to look competent and serious, not like someone who'd gotten her job through personal connections. David picked me up at my apartment, looking devastating in a charcoal suit that brought out the silver in his hair. The sexual tension between us was still electric after 3 months, but now it was tempered with genuine affection and deep respect. Ready for this? He asked as we drove through downtown Seattle. As ready as I'll ever be? I straightened my shoulders, though I have to admit I'm more nervous about facing Ryan and Sophia than I am about the media. Have you spoken to them recently? Sophia texts me occasionally, usually when she wants something. Ryan sent me a wedding invitation last week. Pulled the cream-colored envelope from my purse. They're getting married next month at the Four Seasons. David glanced at the invitation, his jaw tightening slightly. Are you planning to go? I haven't decided. Part of me thinks I should, just to show that there are no hard feelings. But another part of me thinks it would be incredibly awkward for everyone involved. What does your heart tell you? I considered the question. My heart tells me that I've moved on to something infinitely better and I don't need to prove that to anyone else. The community center was buzzing with activity when we arrived. Elena had organized a small reception to celebrate the city council's expected approval of our proposal, and the space was filled with neighbors, local business owners, and community leaders. I felt a rush of pride seeing the genuine excitement on everyone's faces. Elena rushed over to hug me. Channel 7 is setting up in the main hall. Are you ready for your close-up? The interview went better than I'd expected. The reporter, a sharp young woman named Jessica Park, asked thoughtful questions about the development process, the importance of community input, and the innovative financing model we'd created. David and I sat side by side, professional and composed, discussing the technical aspects of the project with obvious mutual respect. This partnership seems unusually collaborative, Jessica observed. Many developers have a reputation for imposing their vision on communities rather than working with them. What makes this different? Emma changed everything, David said simply. She understood from day one that our role wasn't to tell this community what they needed, but to listen to what they wanted and find creative ways to make it happen. And Mr. Martinez gave me the resources and freedom to do that, I added. He trusted me to handle the community outreach even though I was new to development work. There's clearly a lot of mutual respect between you two. How long have you been working together? About 4 months, I replied. I started at Martinez Industries right after ending my engagement to Mr. Martinez's son. I caught David's slight wince at my directness, but I decided weeks ago that honesty was the best policy.
Jessica's
eyebrows rose with interest. That must have created some interesting family dynamics. Actually, it's been wonderful, I said firmly. Mr. Martinez has been incredibly supportive during a difficult transition period. Working with him has reminded me why I got into this field in the first place. After the interview, Elena organized a walking tour of the proposed development sites. David and I moved through the crowd together, pointing out features of the architectural plans and answering questions from residents. I was acutely aware of his presence beside me, the way he deferred to my expertise and supported my explanations with additional technical details. You to make a good team? Elena murmured to me as we paused at the site of the proposed community garden. Very good team. Do work well together, I agreed carefully. Honey, I've been married for 35 years. I know what working well together looks like, and I know what something more looks like. Elena's knowing smile made my cheeks warm. Just be careful. The age difference is going to make some people talk. People always talk, Elena. The question is whether you let it stop you from being happy. That evening, David and I had dinner at a quiet restaurant in Queen Anne, rehashing the day's events and discussing the next steps for the project. The interview had gone well, but I could see the tension in David's shoulders as he anticipated the public reaction. Stop worrying, I told him over dessert. Whatever happens, we'll handle it together. Emma, I need you to understand something. When this story airs, people are going to dig into our relationship. They're going to want to know when it started, how it developed, whether it influenced your hiring, and we'll tell them the truth. There were two adults who found each other at the right time and decided to see where it leads. The truth isn't always enough to stop gossip and speculation. Then we'll prove them wrong with our actions. The Georgetown project stands on its own merits. My work speaks for itself. What we have together is real, regardless of what anyone else thinks. David reached across the table to cup my face in his hands. How did I get so lucky to find you? You didn't find me. I found you, and I'm not letting go. The Channel 7 story aired the following Monday during the evening news. It was a positive piece highlighting the innovative aspects of the Georgetown project and the collaborative approach we'd taken with the community. Jessica Park had done her homework, interviewing several residents who spoke glowingly about the development process and their excitement for the future. But the real story broke 2 days later when the Seattle Times ran a front-page article titled Martinez Industries Executive Romances Boss After Broken Engagement. The reporter had clearly done extensive research detailing the timeline of my relationship with Ryan, my hiring at Martinez Industries, and my budding romance with David, the article included quotes from anonymous sources describing David as smitten and me as opportunistic. I was in my office reviewing construction timelines when David appeared in my doorway, his face grim. Have you seen the Times article? I've seen it. I've also seen the flood of supportive emails from Georgetown residents and the approval letter from the city council. The people who matter believe in this project and in us. Emma, this is exactly what I was afraid of. They're painting you as a gold digger who traded up from the son to the father. And they're painting you as a foolish older man who fell for a scheming younger woman. We both know that's not true. I stood up and walked around my desk too. Face him. David, I knew this would happen. I accepted it as the price of being with you. Don't let them win by making us doubt ourselves. I can't stand the thought of people saying those things about you. Then let's give them something else to talk about. I reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a folder. I've been working on a proposal for a second community development project in South Seattle. It's twice the size of Georgetown and would create over 500 units of affordable housing. David took the folder, his eyebrows rising as he flipped through the detailed plans and financial projections.
Emma, this is incredibly ambitious. The budget alone
is completely feasible if we can secure the right partnerships and tax incentives. I've already reached out to 3 nonprofit organizations and 2 city council members who are interested in supporting it. You did all this research on your own time? Did it because I believe in what we're building together? Not just the buildings, David. The future. The communities. The proof that development can be done ethically and sustainably. I moved closer to him. I did it because I love this work, and I love working with you. His voice was rough. With emotion, I love you too. It's more than I thought I could love anyone again. Then don't let a newspaper article make you forget that. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of media attention, both positive and negative. The Georgetown project became a symbol of innovative urban development. With delegations from other cities coming to study our community engagement model, at the same time, gossip magazines and online blogs continued to speculate about my relationship with David, often in cruel and invasive ways. The breaking point came when Sophia showed up at my office unannounced, her face flushed with anger. An embarrassment. Emma, we need to talk. Now. I gestured for her to sit down, noting the designer handbag and expensive shoes that suggested her lifestyle had improved considerably since marrying Ryan. What can I do for you, Sophia? Can explain why you're all over the news making our family look like a soap opera. Her voice was shrill with indignation. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is for Ryan? For me, people are asking if you planned this whole thing from the beginning. Planned what exactly? Don't play innocent with me, Emma. Broke up with Ryan, then immediately started working for his father, and now you're sleeping with him. It looks calculated. I leaned back in my chair, studying my sister's face. In my previous life, I would have been defensive, apologetic, desperate to explain myself. Now I felt only a calm certainty about my choices. Sophia, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen carefully. My relationship with David has nothing to do with you or Ryan. It's not a rebound. It's not revenge. And it's not a business transaction. It's 2 people who found each other at the right time and decided to build something together. The optics, Emma. The way it looks to whom? To the people who matter most to me, it looks like I'm finally happy. The Georgetown project is proof that I can do this job. My relationship with David is proof that I deserve to be with someone who values and respects me. What about Ryan? He's devastated by all this media attention. Ryan made his choice when he decided he'd rather be with you than me. I'm genuinely happy for both of you, but I'm not going to live my life in the shadow of that choice. Sophia's expression shifted from anger to something that looked almost like envy. Emma, you've changed. You're different than you used to be. I'm exactly who I was meant to be. I just stopped pretending to be someone else. After Sophia left, I sat in my office, staring out at the Seattle skyline. The city sprawled below me, full of neighborhoods and communities and people with dreams and challenges. Somewhere out there, families were waiting for affordable housing. Small businesses were waiting for opportunities to grow. Children were waiting for safe places to play and learn. That's what mattered. Not the gossip or the speculation or the judgment of people who didn't know me. What mattered was the work, the relationships, the difference I could make in the world. David appeared in my doorway again, this time with 2 cups of coffee and a gentle smile. Rough day? Sophia came by to express her concerns about the media coverage. And how did that go? Better than expected? I think I finally understand the difference between explaining yourself and defending yourself. And what's the difference? When you explain yourself, you're trying to make someone understand your choices. When you defend yourself, you're trying to justify them. I don't need to justify choosing you, David. I just need to live with the choice and be happy about it. Are you happy, I mean? I stood up and walked over to him, taking one of the coffee cups and inhaling the rich aroma. I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I'm doing work that matters with a man who challenges me and supports me in equal measure. I'm finally becoming the person I was meant to be. Even with all the media attention and family drama, especially with all that, it's teaching me that I'm stronger than I thought I was. David set down his coffee cup and pulled me into his arms. Emma Chen, you are the most remarkable woman I've ever met. I love your strength, your compassion, your intelligence, and your courage. I love the way you make me want to be better than I am. You don't need to be better than you are. Just need to be exactly who you are. Who am I, according to you? You're a man who builds things that last. Communities, relationships, legacies. You're a man who sees potential where others see problems. You're a man who loves deeply and leads with integrity. I want to build something that lasts with you, Emma. Something that goes beyond this project or this company or this city. What did you have in mind? Instead of answering, David reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught as he dropped to one knee right there in my office, with the Seattle skyline as our backdrop. Emma Chen, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me? Change the world with me? And love me for the rest of our days? The ring was perfect. A vintage emerald surrounded by diamonds, elegant and unique and utterly me. But more than the ring. It was the look in David's eyes that made my heart race. He was looking at me like I was his future, his partner, his equal. Yes, I whispered. Then louder, yes. Absolutely yes. As David slipped the ring onto my finger, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. In my previous life, I'd been so focused on trying to be the right woman for the wrong man that I'd lost sight of who I really was. I was exactly where I belonged, in the arms of a man who saw me clearly and loved me completely. The Georgetown project was officially approved by the city council the following week. Construction would begin in the spring, with the first families moving in by the end of the year. The South Seattle project was also gaining momentum. With preliminary approval from the mayor's office and strong community support, 6 months later, David and I were married in a small ceremony at the Georgetown Community Center, surrounded by the families and neighbors who had become like family to us. Alina Rodriguez served as my matron of honor, and Maria, David's longtime housekeeper, walked me down the aisle. Ryan and Sophia had been invited but chose not to attend, which honestly came as a relief to everyone involved. They divorced 3 months after their wedding, with Ryan citing irreconcilable differences and Sophia citing Ryan's gambling debts and infidelity. Some things, it seemed, never changed. But I had changed. I'd learned to trust my instincts, to value my own worth, and to choose love over fear. I'd learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is let go of what you think you want and reach for what you actually need. As David and I danced our first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by a community we'd helped build and friends we'd made along the way, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the second chance I'd been given. Not just the chance to relive my life, but the chance to live it authentically, courageously, and joyfully. No regrets? David murmured in my ear as we swayed to the music. Only one, I replied, smiling up at him. That it took me so long to find you. We found each other exactly when we were supposed to, he said, spinning me around the dance floor. And we have the rest of our lives to make up for lost time. The song ended, and our guests applauded, but David and I kept dancing, lost in each other and the promise of all the tomorrows stretching out ahead of us. I'd chosen the unconventional path, the one that looked wrong to everyone else, but felt perfectly right to me. And in the end, that had made all the difference. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.